as a PG podcast, but then Devin just kept on dropping shits and fucks, and
I'm just trying to figure out what's in her mouth.
I just want to see him interview Francesco Aquilini.
No, he's a good human being, is what he would say about himself, I'm sure.
Who's hosting this thing?
Take charge, Kevin, would you? Jesus.
First time we ever met those guys. That was the major drunken pub argument.
I think you guys are the worst.
I'm gonna have to probably watch some Canucks hockey, unfortunately.
Just making friends left, right, and center, and probably some enemies as well.
Tell him to shut up. He needs to hear that every once in a while.
Off to a good start.
All right. We are live.
It's okay to talk when it goes live.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hockey Podcast. You can follow us, of course, on Twitter at podcast_hockey, Facebook.com, The Hockey Podcast, YouTube.com, The Hockey Podcast, where we are currently sitting at the 100, and Nick Antropov, former Devon Toronto Maple Leaf, the subscribers. You can also subscribe to the audio wherever you get this. Now, you may have noticed that I am not in the same place that I usually am. I am actually across the street from the Richmond Olympic Oval. Why? Because for the first time since February of 2020, the general manager, Phil Aloof, came up to me and said, "Great season. Look forward to having you back next year. But we can't shake hands. We have to fist bump because of this COVID protocol crap." Little did we know that for the first time in 18 months, we'll be able to do a play-by-play game. The Greater Vancouver Canadians play their first home opener against the Northwest Hawks, coming off a late 3-2 victory last night. So pretty excited about that. We have everyone else here. Sean is here. Sean doing school and then just jumping right on.
That's my new life now. Being on a video group chat for group projects at school, and then jumping on a video group chat that is not school related now.
It's the way of the new world. The new world. Chris, how are you?
I'm doing fairly well. How about you, Kevin?
Good. Got a message from Devin, Tyler. Devin?
Oh, yeah.
Kevin, is Tyler coming on? Yes. Well, I'm going to fuck this. I am going away to the Okanagan. So screw this. I'm not going to be on this podcast. So,
and I'm guessing he's going to whack a few golf balls on this trip too, because if he has I might actually have to admit I'm jealous of Devin for once.
Well, if it's the weather like it is today, it's a pretty crappy day to do golf, and here it's like pouring rain. Yesterday
because it's just been brutal here for the last couple of weeks. That's flooding, and yeah, it's been it's terrace in the fall. We all wish it doesn't happen this way, but it usually does.
Can't speak for the Okanagan, but in Calgary, it's blue sky. It definitely has cooled down. It's definitely fall weather, but it's nice weather here in Calgary.
Yeah.
Well, for the first time in, I think, 6 months, I'm wearing jeans. So that gives you an idea of how.
And look at you with your bow tie and your team jacket and a backdrop.
Dapper.
Thank
all over
you.
It today.
Thank you. Still single. Just say it, ladies. All right. Well, obviously, we've got a lot to get into. It is training camp season. And let's go just quickly do the promos here. We've got a lot of other stuff going on. Keep an eye out. We're doing the news thread every day, or from Sunday to Friday anyway, keeping track of what's going on in the NHL, some of the news that is going on. We also got a couple of WHL interviews that we did here. Interviewed Jamie Neugebauer about the Moose Jaw Warriors, did their season preview as well, and how they're going to match up against Connor Bedard, and how excited they are about Braden Yeager, who was the third pick in that draft with Connor Bedard. So that's a guy that you're probably going to hear about a lot in the NHL. Interviewed Marty Hastings from Kamloops Now about the Kamloops Blazers. And we've got the Third Line podcast we'll be recording on Tuesday as well. And we've got a few other things. Sean, what's going on? Do you have a podcast coming up?
Oh, yeah. Heidi and I will be breaking down Lewis Hamilton's 100th win in F1 that happened this morning, as well as some more wrestling stuff sometime this week. We haven't nailed down a day yet. It's a bit, as I said, I'm busy with school and other things, so it's a bit, and it's just a bit hard to track down sometimes. But we will definitely be having a new Heels and Wheels episode out this week.
Sounds fun. All right, now that we got what we're doing away, if you have any comments and questions, put them in the chat as well. But let's start with the Canucks. It's game day. Actually, it's game day for both the Flames and the Oilers are playing tonight, as well as the Canucks are in Spokane to play the Seattle Kraken as well. But for the Canucks, we know Pettersson and Hughes are not at camp, still unsigned. They are in Michigan. The other ones that are not at camp, Travis Hammonic, it's not known why he is not at camp, but he is not at camp. And Brandon Sutter, also not at camp yet. It is not COVID, but he was dealing with fatigue. So I guess coming in, maybe we'll start with Tyler. What are your thoughts on that part of it?
Well, for the two guys in particular to not be signed yet, I would say I'm at the concern stage now. As long as they're in the lineup for the first game and they're ready to play, then all will be well. But at this stage, to not have them there, I would put that under the category of concern, especially since they're not in Vancouver. They may be close. They may be close to negotiations. We're at the point now where we're getting those, sort of the standard response about how they're continuing to talk, but you can't really get any feel right now as to whether they're close or not. And so that sort of void there kind of has me wondering if they are going to make it for opening night. But this isn't the first time the Canucks have had some difficulty getting a restricted free agent signed. So we'll just take it day by day here. But as each preseason game passes and they're not part of it, it becomes more of a distraction and more of a concern for me as a follower of the Canucks.
Yeah, it definitely is concerning. I definitely would not want a William Nylander type situation where it goes further into the regular season. So the sooner we can put a cap on this, the better. At least that's my take.
Yeah, in terms of Petey and Quinn, it is concerning at this point. I would have hoped that they would have been able to get these contracts done, signed, sealed, and delivered before camp started, or at least before the preseason started. This is a team that wants to erase the memory of last season, and the only way to do that is to have a really good start. And the best way to do that would be to have those guys in the lineup. I'm still somewhat optimistic on them getting it done. We have Kaprizov signed, and that helps with a bit of a comparable for Pettersson. Rasmus Dahlin signed. That's going to help with a comparable for Hughes. It's going to be tough to get them both signed, but I think they're going to find a way, and I think it'll be done in the next 3 to 5 days. And they need to, because as I said, this is a team that wants to erase the memory of last season, and they've made some big changes. And we're seeing some interesting line combinations. And yeah, I just think it's time. It's really time to put up or shut up for Jim Benning and the management team, as well as Petey and Hughes. If you guys, if they are wanting to be the part of that solution here in Vancouver, it's time to maybe not be as big a stick in the mud and taking such a hardline stance on what they want salary wise at this point. And all same thing with the Canucks. They need to find a way to make it work. It's time for a deal. Let's go.
Compromise.
Yeah, and it may not be, the dollar figure so much as the term, but whatever the case, time is of the essence here too, as Sean has just pointed out, to get this deal done. So we hope for the best there.
Phil is in here. He says this. Someone said that the Hughes deal is already done, but they don't want to announce it yet because it'll open up an offer sheet for Petey. The Canucks won't be able to match.
It if they're worried about that, I think it's a very slim possibility. There's maybe one or two teams that actually have the ability, the picks, and it makes sense for them to do it. So, and I don't know if they would want to make that move. So I think it's
an interesting
idea.
Yeah.
I would be surprised if they announced both right at the same time.
Yeah,
actually, I'm expecting it anyways.
Once you secure one contract, you know exactly how much wiggle room you have left for the second one. So at this point, since they're on this with the same agency and everything, obviously those agents are just going to try and max that out. So Vancouver has like $0 left.
If there's truth to this, then it's got to be imminent, because otherwise, if you've got a deal done, why isn't it signed and get Quinn Hughes back to BC for the training camp and the preseason and all that? So I don't know. I mean, I'm skeptical, but if it's true, perhaps we'll have an announcement here in the next day or two.
Well, Phil, but it's purely speculation. It's just someone said at this point. So yeah.
I mean, but the theory is solid. I mean, there's some logic behind that.
I definitely think the Canucks are worried about a potential PD offer sheet, but when I look at it, I think we've gone through it a few times in our chats. I look at who would potentially be where PD would fit, where PD would and they have they'd be willing to offer up like a $10 million over a max offer sheet, which is 4 first-round picks. Don't forget. Like, that's the part of it. If they sign Hughes to something and someone tries to do that second level, Canucks are matching no matter what. They'll find a way. Even if they have to run with like a bare minimum, no spare roster for a couple time until they can figure out the details, that they will match it. So the only way to get through that is a 4 first-round pick max offer sheet. And there's not many teams that would have the appetite for that and the cap space to do that.
I can't see another team giving away four picks like that for anybody. I don't know. That's well, I mean, it's always possible, but for Petey and Hughes in particular, that's no.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like a high likelihood.
Yeah.
Do you see Petey even signing that? That's the other part. Like, if you sign that as PD, and even if the Canucks match it, I'm not trying to create any drama here, but I don't think that would sit well with the fan base, even if they matched. I think that would rub a lot of people in the fan base the wrong way.
And he's a pretty aware guy with that kind of stuff too. I mean, that seems like an enormous reach, but hey, anything's possible.
Yeah, I mean, there were people that were wanting him to take a pay cut. So, yeah,
I agree with Kevin. I think it would be a massive issue if he did sign that. I don't think he would. I think he does have the awareness, and I think he does want to. I think both of them want to be the solution here in Vancouver. I think both of them have seen the good side of what happens when you become you're a superstar in the Vancouver market and you have that success. Mm-hmm. They've both seen that positive side, and I think they want to see it even become bigger and better. Because if they are part of the team that are big parts of the team that takes a big deep run, or even finally takes that big donut off of the scoreboard of Cups won for the Canucks franchise, they'd be legends. They'd be gods in the city, and they know that. And I think they want that. So I think I honestly think we are going to see. I'm optimistic that we're going to see deals being done here real soon.
And they got a taste of that in the bubble in Edmonton without any fans. Imagine the adulation that they'll receive in front of 18,000 fans in Rogers Arena. Oh, Kev, your mic.
There, Kev.
Sorry, muted. Yeah. The one thing I will say, though, is I think that this has to be done this week. Like, for me, I think the longer that this goes, I think even if this is gets done before the regular season, I don't have the stats, but I was trying to find it. But it seems to me that players that do not start or not getting into training camp because of a contract dispute, they don't have the greatest of years. So that's I think trying to get this done as soon as possible is best for everyone involved.
Yeah, I agree, Kev. I mean, they got to get into at least 2, ideally 3 preseason games, I would think, to be ready to go. Especially considering how much they've missed the whole camp portion prior to the preseason game. So, so your timeline of this week would line up with making that happen.
And they strategically missed the bag skate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man, are we going to videotape that when they do the bag skate? Anyway, we'll get into that in a little bit.
The Canucks have 3 days off between their game on tomorrow versus the Flames in Abbotsford, and then they've got the game on Friday here in Calgary. So they've got 3 days to figure that out, and then they've got. Still after that, they still have 4 exhibition games before the season starts. So they've got, if they can get it done this week, they've got more than enough time to get those 2 players up to speed. And the one thing I think is something that is going to help them. They've got Quinn's dad running practices for them. They're practicing with the Michigan team, the Michigan NCAA team, the Wolverines. As well as having Brady Tkachuk there as well right now. So I think they won't be as far behind as maybe some others when they weren't necessarily practicing with other players and not necessarily having someone who as like Quinn's dad who was part of he's played hockey at a high level. He's coached at a high level too. He knows the tempo and speed that practices need to be for them to get into good shape.
That's also an interesting combination. Quite possibly the best college team ever assembled and the 3 biggest not signed RFAs all together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm trying to figure everything out here. No, for sure. Yeah, the longer this waits, the worse it is for everyone. And yes, it's great that they're there. I think politically, though, even I understand that they're practicing with their dad. Does it not concern you a little bit? And I will mute as soon as I'm done with this comment. But does it not concern you a little bit that Petey was in Vancouver and is now in Michigan?
No. I think you want him there. You don't want him in that bubble under the microscope. With people coming up and badgering him because someone it would happen, right? Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. I'm totally fine with him being out in Michigan with Quinn, with Brady, and practicing with the Wolverines and skating with Quinn's dad, dad doing stuff that way. I think it's a way better spot for him than to be having to skate on his own in Vancouver, having to be under in the fishbowl and have people maybe come up to him and badger him. I want him. I'm quite happy with him where he is.
Yeah, I don't know how much of a difference it makes that he was in Vancouver for a bit and now he's not there anymore. I mean, if he had just gone straight to Michigan, I don't know how much that really matters at all. I think if you're not going to be there, I'm with Sean. Just get out of there and avoid the spotlight for the time being.
And as much as some people on Twitter might say that it's a distraction that he is in Michigan, it would be even a bigger distraction if he was in Vancouver and still not signed, because he would be in front of fans, whether it's obviously not in like a open to the public sort of way, but just walking down the street or what have you. He, like Sean alluded to, he would definitely be getting pestered and stuff like that. And it would be ultimately a bigger distraction if he was in Vancouver.
Okay, fair. I can be wrong. That's fine. The other one that is not there, I think that was a shock to everyone and a bit of a surprise, was Travis Hammonic. And we don't know why. That has not been indicated in one way, shape, or form. There's a ton of speculation out there. I mean, that has to also, I would think, get resolved fairly soon. This is a guy that I do think that they're counting on to be in their top 4. I think they have a plan with him at some point, and they're kind of fortunate at this point that Tucker Pullman is stepping up. But this is another distraction that I don't think the Canucks want to linger much longer, whatever this situation is.
Definitely true. I would also argue that with how well Luke Schenn has looked in camp, though, that he could easily step in, well, maybe not easily, but decently step in and be a good substitute for Hammonic, at least while he's still absent.
Yeah, so there's speculation on why he's not there, and I don't think that's fair. I think that's you're prying into a personal situation that we don't know the details of at all. I think Benning's done a good job at not releasing information out there, because I think I think if it is what the speculation is, which is vaccination issues, there's a timeline that needs to be followed too. And for whatever reason, maybe he didn't get vaccinated until he knew what the policy was going to be for the NHL in the season. And you have to get, you can't just, I mean, he didn't want to go down and get the one shot like Duncan Keith did. Like, if that's the case, then I think it's let it play out. But again, that's all pure speculation. There's actually nothing out there, and anyone who is sort of like trying to push that, I think is not doing the discussion justice.
It's well known that Hammonic is fairly private and then also is quite family oriented. So whether this has something to do related to his family or whether it's vaccine hesitancy, like, it's none of our business to pry. And as much as we want him there, we just have to let the situation play out.
Yeah, I agree. I don't want to speculate as to why. It's none of our business. I mean, he's not there. We are currently, though, in a narrative that we're assuming something about someone that may or may not be true. There could be other protocol issues that he is concerned with his family as well. He's been very specific about where he was wanted to play, and it's been mostly the West because of his family situation. As much as Luke Schenn and Tucker Pullman, who Van City comes in with a comment here on that as well, with Tucker and Hurt the Canucks sign sooner. Yeah, we kind of talked a little bit about that, but this is a guy, again, with the whole situation with, I still think Hammonic's an important piece, and hopefully this can get rectified whatever way that is. So that's the big point. The other one was Brandon Sutter. And again, sounds like that was a fatigue issue, not COVID. But fortunately, and maybe where we travel this part next before we get into the drama here, there have been some players that have stepped up here overall. Chris mentioned Luke Schenn. A lot of people have been high other than on Tucker Pullman, but forward-wise, Danila Klimovich has made an impression. Will Walkwood has made an impression. Nick Patan has made an impression. So the good side of all of that is the depth pieces that the Canucks have brought in are off to a good start.
And even long shot player Jonah Gadjevich is even impressed as well. So yeah, as far as depth, it definitely alleviates some concerns. What I like, even though it's being said that with Sutter's situation, it's not a fresh positive COVID case, I'm wondering if this is tied into the long-term COVID effects from when the team got infected last season.
It could be, and it is. I think we are seeing the effects of what Travis Green has tried to do with lineup-wise from that, and I hope Sutter gets better soon, because I think he's going to be a very good fourth line option for them, especially up the middle, because they're very, very, and on the penalty kill, because I think that's a big question of who's going to be the penalty killers this year. But we're seeing different line combinations because of the players that aren't there.
In terms of the long-term impacts from last year's COVID outbreak on the team, I mean that's definitely something that could be lingering over the preseason here. And if that's the case, I mean you can expect the organization is going to be super mum about that. And it's an organization that tends to have a lot of leaks out to the media, but that's one I'm sure that will be kept tightly guarded. So we'll have to just see how things unfold there. In regards to Hammonic, I do know Ian McIntyre. I don't know if others are reporting this too, but Ian McIntyre has been reporting that Hammonic's back in Manitoba, where he's from, for personal reasons. I know the Canucks PR Twitter account had indicated as well that Hammonic was away for personal reasons. So I'm led to believe that's something to do with his family, but we could spend all day speculating here.
Yeah, and I don't think that we need to, again, just with a lot of this, I don't think that I'm a little bit concerned about doing that just from my own speculation. It's none of our business. I'm kind of with Chris and everyone else on that. It's none of our business. They're not there, and let's give them that privacy and focus on the players that are there. And I guess kind of from that, in terms of preseason looks, who are we hoping to see a little bit more of and a little bit that we want to see a little bit in the first half of this preseason anyway, in terms of these depth pieces?
Well, I think the big one for me, these three players aren't depth players, but they've been put together on a line, and that's Miller, Podkolzin, and Garland. Because with the Sutter issue, I think you need to try and extend your center depth, and you know that Miller can play center. So they've put together that line, and I'm very, very curious to see how that line does as things start to ramp up. I was talking with Chris Faber about this, and he said that he's he really likes how Garland plays. He protects the puck really well, and that he wants to see and I think he wants to see them against sort of quote unquote real competition, like other teams and other teams' top lines as preseason goes forward. Because if that line can be something that can be, say, a line that they match up against the second or third lines, they could feast. That could be a real nice strength and bonus for the Canucks. But the key there is who's going to be the right winger on Bo Horvat's line. Right now, it's Zach McEwen that has been given that opportunity throughout most of camp. But Danila Klimovich is a right shot guy that has shown very well. People are starting to be a little excited about that. I think he's a little raw, but does he get any looks in preseason? They brought in Alex Chase on. Does he get a look? Because he's shown that he can be he can pot some goals. What about a Nick Petan once Petey comes back? Because I think he's shown well as the placeholder for Pettersson between Höglander and Besser. Do they want him to be maybe the fourth line center and move Dickinson to the wing? Because I think I'm not expecting Sutter back anytime soon, because I think that you want to take your time figuring out what is actually the issue and what is causing the fatigue that has held him out of camp. So Klimovich, Petan, Chiasson, Gadjevich, McEwen, Lockwood, they're all players that I think need to give good shots and give them a look at maybe even as high as on Bo Horvat's wing.
Yeah, up front, Klimovich is the guy for me. I'm the most curious about. There seems, every day it seems like there's more and more discussion around this guy, and then if there's going to be some absences, can he push for a spot on opening night? I mean, I think the possibility is there. The path is there for him, so that's one to watch. And then, I just want to see how solid Jack Rathbone looks back on defense. I mean, I feel like there's going to be a lot of weight on that guy's shoulders if he's on the roster come opening night, and it looks like he will be. So, can he handle that? Last year was one thing, make a few appearances and kind of impress when the team's out of it. But now, the whole situation's a lot different now for him. There's big expectations now.
To actually touch on the defense, I've been reading a lot that Brad Hunt has actually impressed quite a few people during training camp. So even though I will admit that it's probably Rathbone's spot to lose, Hunt's definitely going to make competing for that third spot on the left side quite interesting. And yeah, it's definitely a two-person race now because Juolevi definitely did not impress during camp. Green even said as much.
Yeah.
And actually going back to long-term COVID, I wonder if that plays into that too. If maybe Ole potentially got hit worse than others.
Yeah. The one thing with that last left side D spot is how comfortable will Green be playing them on the PK? Because you're not going to play Hughes on the PK full time. You can still play him a little bit, but you're still not going to play him full time. That's not his game. But then you've got OEL. Yeah, he'll play a lot on the PK, and then you've got the right side of Myers, Hammonic when he comes back, as well as Tucker Pullman. Are you going to just have the OEL and the three right shot defensemen being on the PK? Are you going to be able to make that work, or do you want someone who is on that third pair that can penalty kill? That's the one spot where I think Juolevi might have an inside edge, because I don't know how much. Trying to look up how much PK time Brad Hunt has played and throughout his spotty NHL tweener NHL career, and we know that Rathbone is more of an offensive geared defenseman. So that's the one spot where I think it's, again, if Green feels comfortable with like Brad Hunt or giving Brad Hunt or Jack Rathbone at least some penalty kill minutes, that's huge, and that'll be a huge leg up for them that they may not need, but they definitely is going to be a big point for the Canucks coaching staff to try and figure out.
I wouldn't count Juolevi out of this just simply yet either. I mean, it's camp, and sometimes, and I'll say this with Klimovich as well. I know that everyone is intrigued by him, and I totally get it. I've watched him at the U18s. He's got some raw ability. There's no question he's got some skill, but I think for him to be on an NHL roster, I think I just don't see that as the best fit for him. Get him in games for sure, absolutely. But he needs to still develop. And as impressed as everyone is, it's still, I look back at that Belarus Canada game where, I thought Klimovich was a little bit of a step behind when the game got to that level. So I for me, the way I see it, I would wait a little bit on that. But even with Juolevi in training camp, just my whole point is even a slow start doesn't mean the end here. Rathbone, Hunt. I mean, I'm not counting him out. I mean, the odds are certainly against him, and there's a part of me that wonders if he just needs a new, fresh start somewhere else. But I still, let's see him in games. Let's see what happens in games, because sometimes some players are better, are not as good at practice as they are at games, and maybe that's it with Juolevi as well. Once he gets into the game flow, he's still going to be there. So I'm not counting him out just yet.
Fair point.
Mm-hmm. I guess you made a nice segue into the whole bag skate discussion there, Kevin.
Yeah, but before we do that, I do think the other quick thing here at Van City, shout out to Van City, get their jerseys down on Dunsmuir and Seymour. But Tyler Mott is also missing. I do think that's a fairly significant loss to the Canucks. But Alex Chason's coming in. I do think he has a chance of making a team. I think that this was a good sneaky little PTO that I think if the Canucks want to sign him, I think he would be a good fit. Good right shot guy, can play 2 to 4, up to 2 to 4 lines, and can score goals.
I don't think he's a Tyler Mott quote unquote replacement. I think he's more of I think he does. He's not necessarily a penalty kill guy, and that's where Tyler Mott's bread and butter is. But I think as you said there, Kev, I think he does have a spot if he can take it. And I went into it a little bit as well with that spot on if they decide to have JT Miller at center, and split up the Lotto line. There's a winger spot open for anyone who's willing to step up to play with Bo Horvat and Tanner Pearson. And could that be an Alex Chiasson? But I wouldn't be too upset if that's something that turns out to be, if Chiasson can take that and grab it and take that spot, I wouldn't be upset at all.
Yeah, a decent fill-in piece. I mean, not a long-term solution, but to start the season, and you need to fill a spot. Nothing wrong with Alex Chiasson there. Very experienced.
Yeah.
In terms of like in terms of an actual Mott replacement, because that's another pro. As I said, his injury that has been lingering. That's where Matthew Highmore comes in. That's where William Lockwood comes in. That's where Zach McEwen comes in. That's where Jonah Gadjevich comes in. But for me, it's more Lockwood and Highmore, because I think those guys are the guys who have the speed, have the fit, the tenacity what made Mott successful.
Sure. All right. So the drama happened first day of camp. OEL videotaped on the ice, and we see the scene. He's doing drills, and he's a little bit behind everybody else, and it got Twitter abuzz. Now, this wasn't the only person that had a little bit of a struggle with opening day. Olli Juolevi also was part of that. Connor Garland also had a bit of a struggle with that. We had even a chat about this as well. Some felt that this was a big deal. Some felt like we needed some context, and it turned out, to Sean's credit, we did need some context. It was one of those situations where he was doing a drill previously, OEL was, and that was sort of the reason that he was far behind. But so I think. Can we start with Tyler on this? Because I have some thoughts, and I think they're going to be a little bit controversial. And so I'm going to let Tyler and his calmness step in, because I have an opinion that I don't think is going to be very popular on this.
Well, my view on this is that I would have preferred not to see any of that. I think for anybody would have preferred not to see any of that. Context, yes, matters. Although it is interesting that two of the new guys that come from Arizona had trouble with this. And it's hard to believe that that's entirely a coincidence. But OEL's a veteran. His security in the lineup is solid. It's the first bag skate. Coach trying to see where everybody's at. As long as he's ready to go for the first game, I'm really not that concerned at all about how that looked. But it was mentioned internally with our group that when you're a new acquisition with a fair bit of expectation placed on you, and the circumstances of the OEL trade with the big cap hit and all of that, fair or not, if you don't make a good first impression, that's going to be a bit of a problem. It's not a great look, and so here we have this now. It's fodder for people to kick around. I think he's going to be okay, but if he wanted to make friends with the skeptics out there about whether he's going to help this team or not, it would have been better if people didn't see that. On the other side of it, Olli Juolevi, I mean, he his job security is very sketchy here. Like he has to make a solid impression, and when you see the shot of him basically sleeping on the ice in the corner there because the skate beat him up so much, I mean, boy, Olli, I don't know, man. And then Travis Green comes out and says he didn't do himself any favors. Well, no kidding. So, yes, there are dual standards there when you're talking with a veteran and a more of a rookie type player. But either way, I think as fans, you're hoping not to see that kind of thing.
Just like with the Benning supporters and the Benning haters, I feel like there's going to be a similar situation with OEL. like the additional context for the OEL supporters are going to be like, hey, this is after a half hour of drills, and like this is the last leg of essentially the beep test that they were doing, and he was fully gassed at that point. So they're going to say that with that context, it's supported as to why he was so far behind. But then, of course, anyone who is against us picking up OEL in that deal, they're going to be like, hey, look, he's like half a rink behind everyone else. Like, why did we sign him? So like there's fuel for both fires.
I'm glad you brought up the beep test there, Chris, because I've done that back when I was actually in shape. And even if you're in really good shape and you don't understand there are techniques to make it easier for you. You can, if you do understand the techniques, it can really bump up your score on that. And I think that's a little bit a decent comparison to what this bag skate is. There's a lot of players who have gone through it multiple times, know how to handle it, know how to pace themselves through that first practice, so they aren't just dead once the bag skate comes. You talk. Harman Dial did a fantastic job writing about it and I got quotes from both Green and even Henrik Sedin. The Green talked about how like the newer players do struggle with it because they haven't done it before. They don't know quite what to expect. They don't know how to pace themselves in it too, because you could blow yourself up doing it the first, because I think the video was his like third time doing it, and he was a little bit he went a little too hard in the first two type deal, right? There's some technique and there's some thought. Like until you've done it, I find it hard. I think there's until you've done it, you don't know what to expect. So it could hit you harder than the people who know how to know what it is and what to expect. Even Henrik Sedin, Harman got a quote from Henrik Sedin. If you've never done the skate before, you're in trouble. It doesn't matter what shape you're in. So that this is coming from a guy who's done it. He did it in his first in Green's first year as a head coach for the Canucks. He understands it. So I think it's not overreact. It's taking a look at it. Yeah, it doesn't look good. The optics do not look good. You don't want to see that from a guy who has a cap hit that OEL has. But you also have to take a rational look at it and not let your emotions get the best of you here and say, oh, newer guy, hasn't done it before, doesn't know all that, and not let, yeah. For me, I tried to look at it from as level-headed as possible, and that's where I came out with is it's not something to worry. I don't think it's something to worry about. I think it's something that newer players, for the most part, struggle with. Garland puked at the end of it. It happens. Mm-hmm. I think it's not something that should be over analyzed to the degree that some people were.
And to add to Sean's point, sorry, Kev. Crap, totally just lost the train of thought. Yeah, literally was on the tip of my tongue and gone.
Maybe if I say things, it will pop up for you. This is probably not going to be very popular what I'm about to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. I'm kind of with Tyler on this, that I don't think that this stuff should be posted. Yes, I agree. Free media. Yeah. I think people are all interested in what's going on here, but to me, this is embarrassing a player, and I don't like it. It was completely out of it created a conversation. It's content. I agree that it's content, but it's one of those situations where we didn't get the context for it, and it potentially embarrassed a player that I don't think, at $9 million, $5 million or not, I just don't think that that's kind of stuff. I'm not a big fan of doing that. And, and people were creating an advantage for it. Look, OEL has been in this league for 10 years? He's probably has a rigid shape that he gets into, and, maybe maybe part of this is as Tyler said, it's an interesting issue that's the two Arizona guys, but other players have struggled. To be fair though, too, we didn't hear anything about Jason Dickinson and the bag skate. This is his first bag skate as well. There were a number of other players that seemed we didn't hear anything about. So maybe there's a good point there, but I understand that we want all access for everything, but to me, I'm not comfortable finding ways to make sure that we put people in a position that embarrasses them. I don't think it's beneficial to the player, and I don't think it's beneficial for this in terms of the context.
It felt to me like gotcha journalism there. Like it's open to the media, so you can expect any kind of reporting to come out there. Would have been nice to be provided with more context, but I mean, at the end of the day, and Sean used the word optics. If OEL doesn't get off to a good start, now there's this fodder for the detractors to say, we told you so. Look at this guy; he wasn't in shape. He's not ready to go, et cetera, et cetera. And whether you offer more context or not, the reality is he was lagging behind in that skate, and people are going to spin that whatever way they want. So you either get flack for not opening up the access to the media, or you have to take the good with the bad on this. And OEL should be extra motivated now to get it going here.
So I actually do recall what I was going to say. In addition to what Sean had said, someone like Bo Horvat, who was not known to be a strong skater when he first joined the Canucks, he doesn't have an issue with surviving the bag skate nowadays because he has gone through enough camps with Travis Green and has worked on his skating hard enough to be more proficient at it. So yeah, just people who have had more experience with Green's style of camp are probably going to have a better chance of excelling.
And if you don't want it out there, that part of practice should be closed to the media. As soon as you invite media out in there, you're going to get people recording video with their phones, and they're going to say what they want and try and spin it the way they want it. And I have no issues with the video coming out. I have issues with how people are interpreting it, and I have issues with how people are analyzing it without having that and just being so blunt about it being, well, that means he's out of shape, without even looking at the potential reasonings. Which is why I said I felt that Harman Dial did a fantastic job writing about it for The Athletic, and he talked with Dickinson, he talked with Garland, he talked with Henrik Sedin, he talked with Travis Green, and everything coming out of that to me says that it's not necessarily something you should be worrying about, because it's something until you've done it, you don't know how intense it is, and it can catch you off guard.
Yeah, I just in terms of all of the workouts and stuff, Dan Stevenson from Fireside Podcast, he did Flames. They did with Flames Media. They did a little bit of some training camp drills, which I think included a bag skate. I can't remember. And let's just say most of the media did not come away looking incredibly good there. So I mean, it's easy for us on this end of this say, well, this guy can't do a bag skate. I have news for you. Most of us could not do a bag skate. Probably the closest on this one maybe could be Tyler. I know I could not survive a bag skate. Sean saw me drive a golf cart. He can probably attest that, a bag skate may not be the best thing for me to do. So it's, that's the other thing about it too, is like, yeah, okay, this guy's not in shape. I have news for you. We're all not in shape right now.
Yeah, I don't want coverage of hockey teams to be a situation where you have guys covering for professional athletes and say, sort of babying them and saying, well, this is going to make them look bad, so I'm not going to post it. No, we don't want that. But very, very accurate and description of what's going on and context, and a little more explanation would be nice, as opposed to just posting this video and going, oh, OEL, nothing wrong with the video. I think we should encourage that. It's a measure of accountability for the players as well. I mean, if I'm OEL and I looked like that and I see the video, I'm going to be extra hungry to prove myself in the next skate. So it may be a blessing in disguise to give him a little kick in the butt, so to speak, to get going here.
And to Kev's point earlier, some people are better game players and do not shine as much during practice, so it might be that as well.
Yeah, my final thing on this is I'm not saying that I'm not saying if you're going to post like with some context. That's, I think, what ultimately has to come out here. And I know that it's quick, and I know that there's a lot of media and people make decisions, but that's just maybe my perspective. But I'm not I'm sitting here at a TNT market, not at a Canucks practice, so maybe what the hell do I know? But that's that's my perspective on this as well. Anyway, maybe we'll touch on this because this really is Canucks thing. I know this is more TV thing, but this will be the last Canucks thing before we move on. Jim Houston officially announced his retirement. We talked about last week that the lineups for regional broadcasts, and it sounded like Jim Houston was not coming back. He did confirm it. He is retiring. And I put this in the Canucks thing because I wonder how the Canucks, he's part of the 2011 Cup run. He's called some famous games. He's well known in Canucks Canucks play-by-play. We'll start with Tyler here in terms of your thoughts on Houston, because we didn't get those yet, but also as well, should the Canucks honor him in some way? And I didn't necessarily say Ring of Honor. I said, should the Canucks honor him?
No, so to answer the second one, yeah, they're definitely going to honor him. I mean, he was the radio voice from 94 to 98 or 99 or something like that. So he was the voice prior to John Shorthouse. And then obviously so many memorable calls over his career, many of them with the Canucks. Great save Luongo, of course, a signature call of his, the 2011 run working for Hockey Night in Canada. They'll honor him in some fashion. I don't know how, but I would expect something will be coming there. What a career for Jim Houston, spanning 6 decades. And for me, what's really cool about it is that he's a fellow Northern BC guy that was able to, reach this level in his craft. I think he did 12 or 13 consecutive Stanley Cup finals, a couple of Olympics, called an Olympic gold, was great as a baseball announcer as well, and was the voice of the Blue Jays on TV in their early 90s heyday, did the EA Sports video game. So there wasn't really much left for Jim to do, and I felt like with the pandemic and getting to be at home more often and not traveling, and he had a lighter workload last year, I think he started kind of enjoying that extra time. And in the interviews he's given since his announcement, he's indicated the travel was wearing him out a bit. And there wasn't really much left for him to do. I know there's speculation that people feel like Chris Cuthbert's arrival at Sportsnet kind of started pushing him out. Maybe that's true, but then again, Jim got his shot at Hockey Night in Canada because Chris got terminated by the CBC back in 2005. So I don't know. I think Jim's happy to step aside now. He's not that old yet. He's not doing the Bob Cole route where he has to be pushed out because he's been around for too long. As Doc Emmerich, it was the same thing, left before the standards started sliding. So we thank Jim for his contributions, I guess is the old phrase here. And Sportsnet's in good hands with Chris Cuthbert as their lead guy, as we saw last year. So it makes sense on many levels. But Jim's getting to go on his terms, so to speak. But really the pandemic, and he's admitted this, kind of probably helped nudge him in the direction of stepping aside. If it weren't for the pandemic, maybe we would have seen him continue on for another year or two. But from what he's been saying, it sure sounds like he's happy with the idea of having some more time with his family and relaxing.
Well, Sportsnet has, just on top of that as well, Sportsnet, you've got Rick Ball that you need to give some more time to. You've got John Shorthouse you need to give some time to. You've got John Bartlett. You've got Hunter Ryan Singh.
Well, Hunter Ryan Singh, I think, is the key, right? Like, if you're Sportsnet and you saw his development last year, and he's a Western-based play-by-play announcer. That fills a void logistically at least, and then you've got all those other great voices that have been gaining more national opportunities as well. So Sportsnet will be okay without Jim Houston, but there's never going to be another Jim with that distinctive voice and the way he called games.
Yeah, it was a hockey voice.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And just to touch off of the second question, because obviously Sean and I have already given our initial thoughts on Houston's career and whatnot, I think the Canucks definitely will give him some recognition, probably like a pre-game standing ovation or something to that sort. I just don't imagine it being up to the standard that they're trying to keep for the Ring of Honor. So, yeah, I definitely see a standing ovation near the start of the season in front of fans as how they honor him. And if just one more opportunity to be nostalgic, other than the great save Luongo, I would have to add it's a great day for an exorcism with Burroughs' Dragon Slayer moment. Still gives me chills.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone talks about Shorthouse's they slayed the dragon call, but a great day for an exorcism was just another fantastic call. The Canucks have their broadcast booth named after Jim Robson. I'm not sure what is the right way to honor Jim Houston is, but I think they will. Whether it is just something in Rogers Arena to honor him in the concourse, I think it would be fantastic as well. But something like that I think is right up. I think would be the right amount of that for the Canucks to honor Jim Houston.
Hey, you know what? You could have the Jim Houston craft beer. A little great save Luongo.
Yeah.
Still one of my favorite call. I know it's not a Canucks call and it wasn't a great save, but still the one that still gets me is after the Humboldt tragedy, it's Habs and Leafs hockey night in Canada. They say that you can take some refuge in this game. Let's see. Let's try. Those first words still to me, that of all the calls, that still is the one that gets me the most. He just anything else.
I definitely get the emotional punch of that one for sure.
Yeah. Anything else with the Canucks before we move on?
The roster that they're sending down to Spokane is out. Looking forward to see what Klimovich looks like. He's going to be playing. They've got all three of the left shot guys that are vying for that last spot on the blue line. Brad Hunt, Oli Levy, and Jack Rathbone playing. And they sent down Patan, Hoglander, and Besser. So, as well, those are what I'm looking forward to seeing, as well as seeing Mikey DiPietro probably get some minutes playing for that team versus the Kraken in their first preseason hockey game.
Yes.
And one very last Canucks note, I only just saw it because I went to the Canucks Twitter just now. It's the Sedin's birthday today, so happy birthday, Hank.
Yes. There you go.
Phil also asked, will we be broadcasting? No, we're not doing any live streams or anything like that, but we will be looking at doing some spaces on Twitter to talk about games after. So keep an eye out for that.
I believe you can watch the game on the Canucks will probably be having the NHL and Kraken stream on their website.
Yeah, I know that
it's already been tweeted out. Yeah.
So unlike last night where we got Toronto versus Montreal on Sportsnet 1.
Yeah, I mean, Lord knows that we only want to see Toronto Maple Leafs preseason games nationally. We don't need to. Good God.
The Canucks will still get quite a few of them.
Yeah,
more than other teams.
I know. Yeah, that's it. Let's just hop to the Flames quickly here too, just to kind of catch up on them. Brad Treliving in net with the media. So Noah Hannafin and Sean Monahan had off-season surgery. I wonder if that had any impact on Monahan being traded, by the way. But both sound like they're ahead of schedule and could play later in the preseason. Johnny Gaudreau, do we want any comments on that?
On his not talking about his contract status?
No, Hannafin and Monahan. Anything on that?
Okay, yeah.
Anything on that? No.
No.
Well, I mean, those are two key guys for the Flames. So it's, I mean, just like the Canucks guys that are missing part of the camp. That falls under the category of concerning, and whether they're going to be ready to go for the start of the regular season. So something to keep tabs on here.
Well, they are at camp, which is a good sign. I mean, Hanifin is playing with Rasmus Andersson right now, and it's Monahan, Gaudreau, and Andre Mangiapane as a line so far. As no pretty Daryl Sutter has laid a pretty clear youth here, veterans here, so which has excited Flames Twitter to no end for sure. But in terms of Johnny Gaudreau, he says he will not talk about his contract status with the media this year. To me, I think this is a good decision. I don't think it needs to be a distraction. I think that this will be a storyline that someone will try to get out because this wasn't settled. And I think good on him to say, no, we're not talking about it. I'm going to focus on hockey this year.
It's not going to stop Eric Francis from talking about it. I'll just say that.
That is true.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and he's still talking about it, I think. Anyway,
yeah,
so.
I mean, it's pretty standard route for a pending, free agent to, reach the start of the season and say there's no more discussion about it.
Yeah. And I think sort of the other news that comes out here is Connor Zary, who is top prospect with the Flames week to week with an ankle injury. You heard him blocking a shot during Oilers rookie game. Hopefully he gets back as soon as possible. That's a loss on the Flames part there for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it sucks. I thought he might have a chance to push his way into the lineup, and now that he's got that injury, I think that's not going to happen.
Yeah. So we'll see where the Flames are lined up later this weekend as well.
I mean, I just want to say the Flames desperately need to get off to a good start this season, or the heat's going to be enormous on Brad Treliving in particular. Got to get off to a good start. More than probably any of the other Pacific Division teams, I would say.
Well, I think it's right there with the Canucks. I think both teams need to get off to a really good start, or else there's going to be issues. I think you're going to have both fan bases are pining to see these teams to do well or to have changes. Whether it is, well, I think at this point it's both GMs could potentially be on the hot seat if they don't start, if things don't go well this season. So I think it's very, very, very important for them to be on, to get off to a good start, and especially in regards to the Flames. Everyone was expecting a much more active off season for the Flames. They were expecting one or two bigger moves than what happened. Yeah, you lost your captain in Giordano in the expansion draft, but that was expected. Everyone knew that was coming.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's why I kind of feel like there's a little more urgency with the Flames, like with the Canucks, like because there have been so many changes already. Yeah, there might be a bit of some growing pains with that. They don't want to fall too far behind in the standings, but I think you can look at it and say they've improved on paper. Whereas with the Flames, they underwhelmed in the offseason, and so if they don't get off to a good start, man, it's going to be like a sky is falling feeling there.
And you also didn't have Connor Mackey on the main group. I think that's rubbing some Flame fans the wrong way because they're very high on him, especially when you're putting your chips in with the veterans.
Yeah.
I think the Flames do need to get off. I think it's more important for the Flames to get off to a better start than the Canucks, I think, overall. But, I mean, I think in this division, I think it's going to be really important, even for the team up north of Calgary, to get off. I think you will have to get off to a really good start. And if I'm just going to toss something out here, I think we are sleeping too much on the California teams and assuming that they're just going to lay down and forget that this year is done. If they get off, if one of those California teams get off to a good start, I do, and one of the Western Canadian teams do not. I think that's going to be trouble for whatever Western Canadian team that is.
I feel like LA could surprise us quite a bit. I don't know about the other two so much, but yeah, it's a good point, Kevin. I mean, there's a lot of overlooking the capabilities of the California teams.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with what Tyler just said. He basically stole the point. I was going to say that LA, to me, is the only real threat that I see coming out of California.
Yeah, I'm not. If anyone surprises, it's going to be the Kings Who's stopping pucks for San Jose? It's James Reimer and Aiden Hill. Like, I don't see it. I don't see it. And then Anaheim is just, they're young. Yeah, they could surprise, but they're young, and I don't think they've got the depth up front to be able to keep up with everyone else.
Yeah, I just, it's if it was the Central Division, I would be like, yeah, the California teams are a long way out, but this division I think is so wide open, including first. Yes, I said it. It didn't stutter. I think even first place is up for grabs here, even with Vegas. So that's where, getting off to a good start, I think overall for all of the teams is really important. Let's, probably maybe I will check out here and I'll let you guys take the rest of because I have to go call a game here. So I'm going to, you guys can take the rest of the NHL. Follow me, KEVOLE, and then you guys can handle this.
I thought you said you were staying until 12:25. What do you?
Okay, I'll stay for a bit. Fine.
Okay.
I'm just
We're almost at the end, and you're bailing on us.
No, okay, well, fine. I'll finish. I'm just a little nervous, making sure everything is okay.
Okay.
But let's go. We'll go through this. Big news out of the Big News Buffalo. Rasmus Dahlin did sign his 3-year contract, but Jack Eichel is on IR. Jack Eichel has been stripped of captaincy. Very much doubtful that we're going to see Jack Eichel ever play another game in Buffalo again, in a Buffalo Sabres jersey.
Yeah.
But it's Buffalo's in a very fascinating situation here there's so much layers going on in this. It's almost, the more I look at this and the more I think about this, I'm not surprised that Eichel hasn't been traded yet. I think that this is too complicated of a deal. And I think for those people that were like, give whatever you want for whatever Buffalo wants for Jack Eichel, I think that they've been proven wrong, because this is, I'm not willing to give where he's at. And I'm not saying that, in terms of where he's at with the surgery and kind of trying to decide all of that, I'm not sure I'm giving away the entire farm for this guy just yet.
Well, there's still not giving up Chris reluctance.
Nope. No, I'm not. Sorry. EVOLE if you want to laugh at me for that.
Sorry, Tyler, for interrupting you there.
I was just going to say, there's definitely going to be reluctance out there for any team that might be interested in bringing him in, not only over, health, but, it just hasn't gone well at all between him and Buffalo, and, expectations and attitude. And there's a lot of factors at play there if you're going to consider bringing on Jack Eichel.
Like, sure, if you want to trade him out, you have to have higher standards as far as Buffalo's management, but their asks are too unreasonable when the people that you're trying to court, they don't know the status of the surgery. They don't know how long he'll be out for. Like, there's way too many question marks to actually facilitate a trade. So it's kind of, at a stalemate at this point.
I think this is all on Buffalo, though. I think the fact that they're so adamant on him getting the fusion surgery when they want him out. They've made this more complicated than it needs to be. Let him get the surgery he wants. Let him start the recovery road, because the sooner he starts the recovery road, the sooner they can make that trade.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, why did they wait so long to make this move on the captaincy? You knew you were trying to trade him. You knew that he wanted out. They should have done this at the beginning of the offseason when things came out, and let that part of the news cycle happen, not during training camp, not during when everyone wants to focus in on everything else. That is a massive
in the Sabres, I guess.
Yeah, that is a massive, massive swing and a miss from the Sabres. I'm not surprised they stripped the captaincy of him. It's the timing that is absolutely ridiculous, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, they never should have given it to him in the first place. I know that's easy for us to say now in hindsight, but clearly that now with the hindsight, you can clearly see that was a kind of an ownership-driven decision. for he was the second overall draft pick, and he's a big star and American. You can understand why ownership would want it, but now that they've done this, whenever they do go to make a trade, it's obvious that he doesn't want to be there. It's obvious that they have to move him, and now their trade leverage is the shits, frankly. So whenever they end up making this deal, it's going to be an underwhelming return. It just is now, given the mismanagement of the whole situation.
And at this point, any picks that they're getting are going to be conditional based off of games played and performance, because you don't know what you're getting, because they've put off this surgery so long, and I don't understand why they feel like they have to demand that he gets that surgery when he's not going to be playing for them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Let the other teams handle that.
Yeah,
I don't disagree there. For sure.
Hey, Kev, I'd suggest we go to the Dubas Shanahan thing and then wrap up, so we don't have to cut you off short here.
Yeah, I guess. Okay. Brady. You guys want to talk about Brady Tkachuk still on side? Well, maybe.
Kind of touched on that earlier, I think. Yeah, another situation to monitor there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But, the Toronto Maple Leafs are hitting the camp. Steve Dangle, once Jake Muzzin scored the first goal of the preseason, declared that they're the Stanley Cup champions, are on their way. But this season with the Leafs in that back to normal division, all of this playoff success, the neighbors to the East went to the Stanley Cup final. The Leafs have been stumbling. Is Dubas and Shanahan on the hot seat in Toronto?
If they don't do a deep run this playoffs, yeah, I would say so. I think this is probably, like everyone said that they were going all in last year. I think out of necessity, they have to go all in this year, because after this season, the Morgan Riley situation gets to play out. And yeah, basically their salary cap stopgap solution that they have right now is no longer valid after this season.
That's a tricky one to measure. It's hard to know where ownership and the higher levels of MLSE are at with Dubas and Shanahan. I think they still. My guess is they're still big believers in Shanahan, but really Shanny and Dubas are kind of a package deal, right? Like if it's not working, keeping one but not the other, what does that do? I don't know. If they miss the playoffs, I think there's definitely going to be a change there. If they get in, I guess it's still going to depend on how it looks, who they're playing, right? Like last year, there wasn't much excuse making offered for it because they were the higher seeded team. They had a 3-1 series lead. The path was a good path to the Stanley Cup final. And then as it turned out, Montreal got there. Whereas in the past, it was a little easier maybe to kind of excuse the result when they were dealing with Boston. So now this year, if they do make it and they have, supposedly they're the favorite in the first round and they don't win, and you look at last year and you look at the bubble with Columbus, there'll be changes. So we'll see. There's a lot of pressure on everybody in that organization, not just in management, but also coaching and the star players, like there always is.
Yeah, I don't know where Larry Tannenbaum and the MLSE board are with Shanahan. I think they'd give him a longer leash than potentially Dubas. But we're talking about a team that has Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, William Nylander, Morgan Riley, who, guess what? He needs a new contract after this season. And they haven't won a single round with this core.
Yeah.
That's that's just something that it's hard to call anything other than an absolute failure. They're in a very tough division this year. I think that might be the toughest division in the NHL. But they need to make the playoffs, and they need to win at least a round to even for Dubas to not be answering questions about his job at the very least, if not saving his job. Mm-hmm. Whether Shanahan and Dubas are a team and they part ways together from the organization, I think remains to be seen, because I think Shanahan's probably done a good enough job organizing things and separating himself out to being he's he's the president of hockey ops or whatever exactly his term is, and Dubas is his GM right now. But if the Leafs don't at least win a round, I think there's going to be changes. I don't know how deep they go, but there will be changes.
What did we think of there's a lot of talk about the Flames off season here for sure, and because of what they were not able to get done. But what did we think? The Leafs, I in terms of goaltending, sorry, Devin, I think they took a bit of a step back. I mean, I know maybe people are not Freddie Anderson fans, but I'm not sure that they're super sold on goal, and I'm not sure they made a lot. They didn't have their. What did we think of their offseason? Because I don't think that they did a lot.
Well, they never really could do much, right? I mean, they're pretty capped and they're committed to a few guys fairly long term. Goaltending, I just think the Freddie Anderson era kind of ran its course, so to speak, and big pressure on Jack Campbell now. But I mean, he's capable.
Well, if he can win and not get injured while winning, I think that will really help the Leafs a lot.
Well, it's a gamble because both of their goalies this season, both Campbell and Mrazek, both are known to be injury prone. So if they can both stay healthy and be competitive, then it might give them a chance. But to me, it's definitely a shaky gamble.
That's where I'm at too, Chris. You nailed it. Both Mrazek and Campbell have injury concerns and histories of playing well, but then getting injured, and you can't rely on them. So you'll also look at, okay, then who's behind them? They've got Michael Hutchinson, Joseph Wall, Eric Algren, Ian Scott. Ian Scott got injured last night. It's tough, but they also didn't have much room. That's exactly what happens when you're paying three players on average of over $11 million. Because Mitch Marner makes just under $11 million, and and Tavares makes $11 million. Austin Matthews makes just over 11.4. When you're that top heavy on the cap, you're very limited on what you can do when you have when you have holes to fill, especially when they're key holes, a key hole such as a goaltending, and you have to find a way to have those goaltenders outperform their contracts. And Campbell has when he's been healthy, but again, we talked just as Chris said, both him and Mrazek have had history of injuries. Mm-hmm. So I know I look at it and I said that I'm not sure what they could have done other than moving on from one of those big contracts. And at that point, are you actually getting the right? I think Kyle Dubas is pot committed, to use a poker term, in terms of what he's got going on with this core. This is his core. He's going to go he's going to stay with it until he's either fired or they actually have success. So,
and not only that, he brought in his coach. He wanted Sheldon Keefe. I'm not going to sit here and proclaim I'm any Mike Babcock lover or not, but you're right. I agree. This is Dubas's ride. So I definitely think Dubas is in the hot seat. I think Shanahan has bought himself enough time. But one thing I will say, though, that you look at this, if the Jays they're not getting into the playoffs, but if the Jays get into the playoffs and go on a run and the Raptors start to come back, and the Raptors are back in Toronto this year, if those two organizations start to pick it up a little bit more in that attention, that's where the heat will be on Shanahan. But right now, I think for now, he's safe.
Might be. The last thing that I kind of want to touch on as far as this Toronto conversation, I'm kind of getting a lot of similar vibes as far as just internal team pressure to win. Very similar to kind of how the Canucks were feeling in that 2010-2011 season, especially like after Chicago clawed back in that first round and there was all those rumors about this team's going to blow up if they lose. I honestly think unless Toronto gets past the second round, there's going to be some sort of demolition of this core or the supporting parts, if not management.
No, they definitely. I mean, you look at Mitch Marner. I don't know if any. To me, that's the Leaf, and maybe the player in Canada with the most pressure on him right now is Mitch Marner. He's the one guy I think that needs to step up for sure. Is there anything else?
Success, I was going to say how much success the Islanders have had since Lou went over there doesn't help them, because we're talking about a team that has been to the has gone deep in the last couple of years, and the Leafs have not. So all the optics are there for a very, very hot seat for Kyle Dubas at the very least, maybe even for Shanahan.
Fair. All right, let's leave it there. How do we follow everyone?
I am Beardy Canucks 03 on Twitter.
I'm on Twitter at TNoble, TNOBLE.
I'm at Schneids on most social media.
Devin is Gordhouse09. I promise, Devin and Tyler will gather together again in a podcast. It will happen.
Yes.
Don't worry.
Yes. We'll have to
I am KE. Hug it out. Devin loves your hair anyway, so
Yes.
we all know. I am KEVOLE, podcast_hockey, Facebook.com, The Hockey Podcast, YouTube.com, The Hockey Podcast. Like us, subscribe us, share, and subscribe to the audio as well. And we will talk to you all very soon. Bye for now.